hitting the go live button. And we can get started now. Hello and welcome to Canada Reads American Style. We are doing a recap of day 2 of the Canada Reads 2021 competition. I will start off with saying there is going to be spoilers. So if you have not watched day 2 of the competition or day 1 of the competition, we are going to be talking about what's been eliminated and what is staying to make it through the competition for the rest of the week. Today, we have with us our lovely ladies from Canada. We have Jolene, who is the author of the website, the Instagram, the YouTube of Bookworm Adventure Girl. We have Larissa, who is the plant mom and book mom on Instagram. We have Sarah, who has a YouTube channel on Needlepoint, and she has an Instagram as well that's curated towards books and needlepoint. And then we have Tara, who is a fabulous knitter, and she loves reading books as well. Let's see, I think we're forgetting somebody. Oh, yeah. Our Canada Reads American Style, Rebecca and I are the co-hosts of the podcast, where you can listen to the podcast anywhere you can find podcasts. So welcome and join us for our discussion this evening. We have a couple of great questions, and we will be with you for 30 minutes tonight. So the very first thing that we're going to discuss is who made the most effective argument for their book today. And Jolene, we're going to start with you today.
Thanks, Shauna. For me, the three that are left. Sorry, just 1 second. We're going to turn down. Thank you. So the three that are left are, to me, very good at debating their books, and they're doing it very differently. But I think it's good, and I loved today's debates. So I think if I had to choose just one, I'm going to choose Paul. I was quite with him today. I think, again, they're all passionate about it, but he's so genuine and he's so into it. And he's been saying a lot of the things that when I was thinking about his book, that is how, I was thinking I would maybe argue for it. Because when I'm trying to figure out which books I think are going to go, I try to decide what my arguments would be and how I would defend the book. And he has some really good points, and I'm looking forward to seeing, hopefully, if it continues, what else he has to say, about it tomorrow. So I would pick Paul.
Awesome. I think I have to agree. I would choose Paul a lot for the same reasons that you said, as well as, he had some pretty devastating news before, and he was able to, really put that aside and focus on providing a really great, strong case for Hench.
Did you all notice how he got choked up when he was talking about after the news? I was like, oh my God, I wanted to cry for him.
I did too. I got emotional too, because I love that show, and I just feel, I felt bad for him, but when he got emotional, I did the same thing. So
yeah. Sarah, who do you think made an effective argument?
My answer's the same, Paul, but for a different reason. I think something that in the Facebook groups, and even when we talked last year, something that everybody's always asking for and commenting on is delving more into like the mechanics and the theory of literature. And so not just talking about themes and how a book comes across, but actually how it's constructed. And he did that today, and that's not something I've seen much of in the last few years in Canada Reads. So he got into the craft of writing and plot and prose and really heralded that for his book, which then Roger kind of jumped on that train later. I think he thought that was a really good point and grabbed onto it for butter, honey, pig bread. But Paul did it first, and I think it was wonderful, and it went over really well in the group too. People seem to be talking a lot about that.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. Tara, are you on the same bandwagon?
I'm on the Paul train. Yep. He was he made me there was one thing he said that so I enjoyed the book, but I thought in my head it was just like a supervillain superhero book. And then today he started talking about big corporations being held responsible for their actions and policing systems. And all of a sudden I felt like this other depth to Hench that I hadn't seen before. So I was like, yeah, he did a great job. And he always looks so nice. They all look nice, but I like his jacket and shirt.
Oh yeah. And Larissa, are you gonna go for Hench as well?
Absolutely, actually. Paul was gonna be my answer as well. And like, to be clear, Hench is not the book that I would like to win. Like, it is not the one I would champion, and it is not the one that I think that like fits the theme the best and all of those things. But Paul is just doing a really fantastic job at defending it. And he did make some really good points, kind of back to what Tara just said. I noticed that stuff while I was reading the book, and I was thinking about like, with everything with defund the police last year, and thinking about the damage that regular non-supervillain, like in our real world, like what not superheroes, but like what the forces for good that we feel are forces for good, like what are their collateral damages. Like, it had me thinking about a lot of that stuff, and I'm really glad he brought that up today in his discussions. But he did a really good job at linking it all back to like things that are happening in our world right now. And also, I did also think he did a good job at talking about how it transported, and how it is almost like this, like some of the other places you were transported were like the Midnight Bargain was this other place, and whereas Hench was almost just like the same place but a little bit different. And so I thought that might negatively affect the book, and I think Paul did a really good job at trying to make it seem like that wasn't the case, that it was still transporting you somewhere different.
Right. Well, because the first day he really talked about accessibility, and then today he really tied it, or he brought it home with the concepts of explaining how it's accessible to everybody, how we're all related via social media, how we're all related with all these social things going on in our world today. So now,
and he did also mention about like using the different literary tools. So like using the text messages between Anna and June,
right,
and like using that as a way to tell the story. And that was something I did really relate to in the book. I knew I liked the book within the first 30 pages because the characters talked to each other the way I talk to my friends. So the fact that he mentioned that today as well, I think was also a tick in the box, sort of. Glad he brought it up. And it lends to that accessibility, maybe not for all populations, but certainly I think for my age group, we're in kind of a weird place where we read a lot of literary fiction that doesn't have a lot that relates directly to our everyday lives, the way that some TV shows might. But this book I found did.
Right. Now, I do want to do a quick plug for the Midnight Bargain, because I think Rosie had an effective first argument in regards to, I feel like she tackled some of the questions that had come up with the Midnight Bargain the day before, especially bringing up the patriarchy and expressing how that, yes, it may deal with that, but it's something that you can understand and be able to help rise above it, kind of deal. But Rebecca, what is your take on this?
Well, when I actually kind of came up with the question, my first instinct was to say Hench, and I agree for all the reasons you all said, but I want to at least do kind of a shout out, and Shauna just said it. I don't know Rosie. She's new to me. Like Paul, I know him. I watch him Kim's Convenience, but Rosie's new to me, and I just thought she was so eloquent in her defense when Devery made that comment about, oh, been there, done that. This is something that we've seen over and over again. I thought the argument then that Rosie made about how it's in your mind, and as an athlete, you know, you've got to kind of self-talk and you've got to really keep pushing yourself, and you're telling yourself the same message over and over. Now, I'm not an Olympic athlete, and I'm not Anna or Beatrice or whatever, but I just really thought that spoke to me. And I didn't read the book, but I thought, you know, I could just picture that my argument probably would have been the same as Devery's. That would have been something that kind of annoyed me. But I liked that Rosie, that was her defense of that technique that the author used, perhaps. And I don't know if it was conscious or not. But I agree about Hench completely, but I just really loved Rosie's response to Devery on that.
I think that we're probably on the same page here, but I thought she did a really good job responding quickly with a good, like, clear way of responding, but I didn't agree with her response. Like you said, you think that it probably would have annoyed you. It annoyed me in the book. Like, I didn't need to hear, I don't care if she was self-talking her way through the book where she had to keep reminding herself she wanted to do magic. That was the concept. I was the reader. I knew that. I was there for it. And so it did bug me. But I agree. She was really quick on her feet to have something to say back. And I don't know that I would have been in that situation.
Thanks. All right. So, Ali talked about being open to reading books outside of your comfort zone, which I believe this conversation took place before the actual program started. So just so everybody knows, when you're reading or when you're participating in the Canada Reads competition, they kind of have like a 30 to 90 second pre-show. And then at the end, they have like a 5-minute ending show for people who are watching on the TV or YouTube. So anyway, before the competition started today, Ali was discussing about being open to reading books outside your comfort zone. So which book of the 5 was most outside of your comfort zone and why? And I would have to say, I think the book that was most outside my comfort zone was Two Trees Make a Forest, because it had a lot of big words in it. It had a lot of environmental stuff, and I don't necessarily follow along in the scientific community as well. But I still feel like it was a good story in regards to having the family history and understanding what the author was trying to get across with her writing. So, Tara, how do you feel?
This was a tough one because I read a lot of different genres. So there's only like 1 or 2 that I kind of steer clear of. But I would have to, if I have to push myself, I'd have to say Hench, just because I don't read a lot of superhero stuff. Like, I read graphic novels, but they tend not to be superhero, although my son has passed on a few to me. So I have read, but not in the book form, and not so much like a action, because it was kind of an action-packed book as well. So I go with Hench. Not really action-packed, but kind of.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
Sarah, how do you feel?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, none of the books are out of my comfort zone. They're all things that I'm totally comfortable reading and enjoy. My things that are outside my comfort zone would be things in like a horror genre, or things that are like war heavy or battle heavy, that sort of thing. So yeah, there's nothing this year that's out of my comfort zone. It's not a very interesting answer, but it's just the truth.
Well, let's see here. What about most? What if we say most outside of your comfort zone?
Yeah, I honestly, I don't have one to pick for that. I was really comfortable with all of the books. I found all the content really really easy for me to read. I didn't, struggle with any of it. I shouldn't say I didn't struggle with any of it emotionally. Like it would, like some of the topics were heavy, but I read a lot of that and I'm comfortable in that place. And the ones that weren't as heavy, I mean, that was comfortable for me. So yeah.
All right. Jolene?
Yeah, like Tara, I think I would choose Hench. Well, no, I know I would choose Hench. I'm choosing Hench because I would never have picked that book up if it wasn't for Canada Reads. Nothing about it would have appealed to me. There were things about the book that I definitely appreciated, and I understand what she was trying to do. I thought it was written very, very well. But if somebody had said to me, hey, there's this great book about villains and heroes and it's in this whole other world, I would have been like, I'm not reading that. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're enjoying it. So it's one of those reasons I love Canada Reads, because it does allow me to try some new things. I do want to read the books that are on the short list for sure, usually even the long list. So I'm glad that I read it, but yeah, it would not have been something that I would normally have picked up. But Hench is my not uncomfortable, but yeah, not my usual go-to.
I think that a lot of people in Canada and us here in the States really enjoy the challenge of reading outside of your genre or reading outside of what you normally do not read. And I had to say, like, this is the first year where, like, the Midnight Bargain is something that I would typically read. Every other book I've ever read for Canada Reads, I would never, ever pick up in my entire life. So how about you, Larissa?
So I struggled with this question. And so I was going to say Hench for all the same reasons, but honestly, I do read sci-fi. Like, I've read other sci-fi I've enjoyed. And so I think instead what I'm going to say is I read a lot of literary fiction. That's my genre. That's what I go to. Literary fiction, basically all of the time, has heavy, uncomfortable themes. So they're always at least somewhat outside of my comfort zone, depending on what's happening in the book. And the thing about literary fiction is, unless there's a trigger warning at the front of the book or something clear in the back jacket, the back of the book, that you don't know that something uncomfortable is coming. So I think we all have different things in our lives that can trigger us and make us feel uncomfortable or like really emotionally upset. And there was something in Butter Honey Pig Bread that typically would have really set me off. And it's not the sexual assault, actually. And to be honest, that's in so many literary fiction books, is themes like racism, themes like sexual assault. So often people are reading them, they enjoy the genre, the book is amazing, but those things are uncomfortable. And I did find the sexual assault uncomfortable in Butter Honey Pig Bread. I actually had to message a friend and be like, listen, you need to tell me how far into the book this is going to happen, because I know it's coming. And this happened last year when I read The Break. Somebody told me something awful was going to happen, and then it was really bad. Like, you need to tell me because I'm really anxious. And so it was horrible. And I put the book down and I came back to it the next day. But then there was something else in the book that happened that was really unexpected. And I wasn't triggered by it in this reading instance, even though it actually happened twice. It was a home birth. There was a home birth in Butter Honey Pig Bread. There were 2 home births that were accidental and unassisted. And that is something that would typically have set me off. And I didn't know it was coming. And I didn't this time. And so it doesn't really fit with the answer of making me really uncomfortable being outside of my comfort zone. But things like that happen in literary fiction all the time, where you read something and you're like, oh my goodness, like that relates back to something that happened to me one time in my life, and now I feel uncomfortable. So I think those people who do normally read literary fiction are kind of used to that blind side, or that reading outside of your comfort zone, because it's an actual instance in the book that suddenly makes you so uncomfortable. I think a lot of people were really uncomfortable with Johnny Appleseed. And I understand that too. There were things that happened in that book that were and like not all the sex stuff that was all over the CBC Canada Reads Facebook group, but like the part where he gets beat up, and Matthias has to participate in beating him up, and he has to say like, yeah, go ahead. Like, I understand that you need to do this or you're going to get beat up. And they're kids, right? Like, stuff like that happens in literary fiction all the time. It's outside of people's comfort zone. And when that's your genre that you read, you kind of get used to that sort of feeling. So I guess that's my answer. I think that it's something when it's outside of your comfort zone and not damaging, it's important. It's important to do because it's important to hear those stories. And it also can help in your healing. Like, reading about the unassisted home births this time didn't set me off and didn't trigger me in any way, which is that's a new thing for me. Normally that's something that would really bother me. And so that helps in my healing because it's something that I've now seen in other stories. And that's how we tell our stories, and that's how we heal.
I just want to say, Larissa, that was a really, thank you for that answer, because that was actually really interesting, because as you were talking about that, right at the end, it dawned on me, nothing bothers me really to read it except, and that's why I just realized it based on what you were talking about, I can't handle when animals are abused. And I still will never get over the vegetarian, because there was a scene in that book that I unfortunately can never unread. And whenever I think of that darn book, I think of that scene. And in fact, somebody on Instagram today posted that picture of like books that they've really enjoyed. And I was just like, oh God, like I will never not think of that. Right. And that was my trigger for it. But no, and I apologize for asking that question, because I thought I guess it's only my issue, because I love to read realistic fiction and I love nonfiction. Those are my two things. And I flip-flop back and forth. If I read realistic fiction, then I want to read nonfiction. I go back and forth and back and forth. I don't read sci-fi. I don't read romances. I don't read, I don't really like fantasy. I mean, I'm not saying I've never read it, but I don't pick those up. I'm not drawn to those. And so I guess this is more my question than anybody else's. So I apologize for asking it, but here's why I thought of it. And again, maybe none of you have this issue, but I appreciated when Ali said it, because I thought to myself, I didn't read Midnight Bargain. And I only tried for maybe about 45 seconds. I'm not going to lie. I just thought, oh God, I can't read this thing. It's so something I don't like. And I felt really called out by just that simple comment that he made, that I need to make a bigger effort to read. And I won't even say comfort zone. I just don't like certain things. And I feel like it's a waste. I hate to say it. I feel like I'm wasting my time, because there's 100 million books. You all post things on a regular basis that I look at and I go, damn, that looks good. I want to read that. And I just save those posts so I can go back and look those books up later. And I just feel like there's so much I want to read, and I don't read that fast, and I don't have that much time. So I just don't want to read things that generally aren't things I'm interested in. So if I had to say, obviously, in the 5 books, Midnight Bargain is the book that is out of my comfort zone. I just don't have an interest for it. And I failed by not even really giving it a good effort. And I felt personally called out by Ali in that moment. He never knew it, but I just felt that way. And that's why I asked the question. So I think, Shauna, if you want to open it up and let everybody talk about whatever they want, because I feel kind of bad with that question.
Can I say something quickly? So I did that exact same thing with Two Trees Make a Forest. I bought it. I read 10 pages and I took it back to the store because I just wasn't really interested. And I don't think that you failed at all, because there's no one judging or grading you on what you read.
Well, I
Just
am.
read what you want to read. Except Shauna, because you've made her read a whole bunch of things. But that's between you guys. In general,
That's true.
no one is judging you.
Thank you. Yeah.
That is true. Yeah. So let's go ahead and do some shout outs. The first thing I want to start off with was, who knew that Canada Reads had a rule book?
I did.
I thought that was really cool. I thought it was cool that it like came through the speakers. That was like, here's what we do now. I loved it.
Yeah. Oh no, Shauna, I thought you knew that because I thought you were the one that told me originally a couple of years ago that they have, like, if there's a tie, something happens if there's a tie. I thought
Because
you
they
told me
put a
that.
poll on Facebook, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're going to bring out the poll that the readers get to use."
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
All right.
no, they
That.
pulled out some other rule, and I'm like,
Yeah.
when are the readers going to be the ones that actually break the tie?
But for those
It
of
was
you
for
who've been
day one.
watching, but for those of you who've been watching for a while, because this is only my 5th year, but have you ever seen that happen where they had a tie where they had to break it that way?
Yeah, it happened last year, the year before. Maybe it was the year before. I've seen it happen a few times. Yeah. But not with the audience poll. I haven't seen the audience poll as a tiebreaker. I know that is one of the rules, but I've seen one of the panelists have to break the tie. Yeah.
How about you, Tara? Do you want to do a shout out for anything today?
No, my shout out would be from yesterday when DeVry mentioned RuPaul. I love RuPaul's Drag Race. So she did like a little, her and Joshua Whitehead, I think, had something she said. I can't remember what it was, but she did a little shout out to RuPaul. So I was super excited by that because I'm a huge RuPaul fan.
That's cool.
I do.
My nephew's been grooming his son to be on that show. He loves that show so much, and he wants one of his kids to be on it someday. So
I like Mike and the boys think I'm insane, but I'm just like, it's RuPaul time. You gotta go. My favorite.
Larissa, do you have any shout outs today?
Yeah, my shout out will be for Ali Hassan. I think he's doing a great job. I thought he did a good job last year, but there was things were more contentious last year, right? Which, if you guys watched Jill Richardson's thing today, you'll know not to call out last year's, and I agree with her completely. And so that's not what I mean, but I think that seeing him moderate in a different dynamic is really cool because last year the dynamic was very different. And I think he's doing a great job, and he's funny, and which I'm sure he'll appreciate since he's a comedian, and I'm sure he'll love to hear that. But I think he's doing a great job moderating and directing the conversation in the proper ways and asking good questions, even before and after the actual for radio broadcast. Yeah, I think he's asking good questions based on what he's hearing them say.
Awesome. How about you, Jolene?
Shout outs, I guess. Well, shout out Scott again, maybe. I think he's been doing a great job. I mean, it's tough being the first one voted off. And then not only that, but to be put on the spot again today to break the tie. So I think I've been very impressed by him and how he's been handling himself and still honoring his book and making sure that it gets the attention that it needs, even though it was the first one voted off. And I think he's handling that very well because it's got to sting. It's got to sting a bit. Whether, yes, all the books have won. We say that all the time. Yes, it's been on the, top of the bestseller list, all those things, which are fantastic, but it still has to sting. And I think he's just been handling that so well, and he's very classy, even I don't really know him all that well, and that's why I'm really kind of getting to know him, and I've been very, very impressed. I think he's done a great job, and he handled both of those situations very well. And even today I felt, oh, the poor guy's being put on the spot, and he just did it with grace. Yeah,
that's true. And Sarah.
Yeah, I was gonna shout out Scott too, but just for congratulating him for his Juno nomination. I think that's really exciting, and everyone should check out his song Bungalow. I also, like Larissa said, I was gonna shout out JL, so she's kind of tangentially, is that the right word, related to Canada Reads, but she's doing I was gonna say the most amazing. Obviously, we're the most amazing, but she's doing a really great recap right after the broadcast every day on Instagram, and then she posts it to YouTube, and it's really a good analysis into the tougher stuff about the show, and I find it really inspiring and thoughtful. And like Larissa mentioned today, she did a really good discussion on last year's show, and some of those contentious vibes that people are still talking about, and kind of how that's not really fair. And I think a year's gone by, well, not quite a year, but a long period of time, and people are still raw about it. And I was pretty raw that first day, like everybody was. But over time, I've started to think like more and more. It seems like when women get heated about hot topics, so like these aren't passive topics they're talking about, they're quickly labeled as aggressive and stirring a pot and whatever. And that's been like stewing with me now since that last show. And so I really appreciated her kind of revisiting that, because I know it's still like a sore spot for a lot of people in different ways. So I think I would encourage anyone who hasn't listened to that to go find her on YouTube, or the link is in the Canada Reads Facebook group she posted today, and watch it and think about it. And like she suggests, if you have some discomfort about that topic or anything in any of the books or that's going on in the show, is just kind of sit with it for a little bit and do a bit of self-reflection on why that might be.
Can I ask about that? I watched it today, and I didn't understand the very beginning when I felt like she was making a comment about what she was wearing or something.
Oh, because in yesterday's show, yesterday's recap, she said that she was going to try and match her outfit to the book that she thought would get voted off.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't understand that
yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't get that. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. I watched it today because I didn't know about it until you guys mentioned it, and then I didn't see the one from yesterday. But no,
she has a book out that everyone needs to read. Larissa read it.
Yeah,
so good.
It's Gutter Child. I haven't read it yet, but I have it.
It's good.
And I would be shocked if it's not a contender if it's not going to be one of the books coming up in a near future Canada Reads.
Cool.
So everyone should read it now and get it out of the way.
Yeah, read it now, and then that way that's one less book I have to read, like as a rush when they announce the short list. Well, I want to shout out Roger Muking, because here's why I want to shout him out, though, because Shauna and I say this every time. How is it he is not working off of notes and he does not read something? Like, he's just like off the cuff, and I think it's a rare person that can do it off the cuff and hit the time mark that Canada Reads gives you. Like, if they'll say, like, you got 1 minute to do XYZ or whatever, and he's pretty good. He pretty much stays on track. But I'm not convinced that it will serve him in the long run, because I feel like, when you got to listen to Rosie's comments, everybody who sat and sort of read their thing, they've given themselves time to think about exactly the message they want to share and how they want to word it to make it really effective in what the listener is hearing, right? And Roger just does it off the cuff. So I'm not convinced it will get him a win, but I'm freaking impressed that he can do it, because I would never trust myself in a live show like that to do. It'd be hard enough to be on Canada Reads, but to wing it, no, never.
I wonder if that's the broadcaster in him, because he definitely, to me, comes across like he's being the host of something and just running with it. It's serious talent. I'm really impressed with him too.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it all depends on like your personality type, right? Like if I was well prepared for something, I would have no problem showing up and winging it.
Really?
When Sarah the other day was like, "Are we going to have the information? How long do we have? What are we going to do for this?" She's like, "I have to be prepared," and I was like, "Am I doing something wrong? Should I be doing something else?" Because I just show up and I'm like, "Oh, those are the questions they're going to ask." I don't think about any of the questions before.
Yeah.
I think all day about it. And I actually, when you sent the questions today, I had to go rewatch the whole show to figure out whose argument I thought was best. And I have to prepare.
Yeah,
that's a good. I wish I had done that.
I write little notes for myself because I forget things when it's spur of the moment. You can tell, I get all flustered. So I'm like, if I at least write it down beforehand, I'm hoping that it ingrains it a little better. So I'm with you. I do the note thing.
Yeah, mine are all in my phone.
Oh, I think most people do that. I think most people do that.
Yeah.
See, the problem is Shauna and I, we watch it in our offices but we watch it together on Zoom. And so I'm chatting back and forth in the chat box, but then I don't write anything down. And then it's like, damn it. Then I can't remember things. So tomorrow, I'm going to write stuff down. I'm not going to chat. I'm going to write it down. So can we say what we think we'll vote? What do you think goes off tomorrow?
Ooh.
I think Johnny Appleseed is going to go. I want Johnny Appleseed and Butter Honey Pig Bread to be the final two, but I think that Paul is doing a really good job with Hench. Nobody has said anything negative about Butter Honey Pig Bread yet, nothing significant. And I think that they're going to be the final two, Hench and Butter Honey Pig Bread. I think those are going to be the final two to go to the finals.
What do you think, Jolene?
Like Sarah, I rewatched most of it again today because I wanted to see how many times the books were mentioned. Because yesterday JL brought that up in her talk, like how many times, on the first day that, what's mentioned, and you don't want your book to be talked about and those kind of things. So I thought, I wonder, what's going on. So I agree with Larissa that it will probably be Johnny Appleseed. At first I thought maybe Butter Honey Pig Bread. And I've kind of leaned both ways, throughout the day, kind of thinking, well, if, depending on, again, how they argue it and how set people are. And I always think that's one of the questions, I'd have for them is, do you just know what you're going to vote for the third day? It doesn't matter what people say, like, can you be persuaded on that last day to change your mind? I've seen it happen in past debates, where somebody says, okay, just because you just said that, you changed my mind and now I know what I'm going to do. But it's rare that it's voiced. So I don't know how much they've decided that, this is the one I want to see go first. This is the second one and that kind of thing. So because of what was said today, I'm going to go with Johnny Appleseed, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Butter Honey Pig Bread.
How about you, Tara?
I was originally thinking Hench, because it was just in my head. I'm like, I think that Hench is going to go tomorrow. I thought it was going to come down to the two literary fiction books as the final two. But after today, with Johnny getting 2 votes, I think it could be Johnny. I think it's going to be between Johnny and Hench. I don't know, but then Paul's doing such a great job. So I don't know, basically. Yeah.
All right, Sarah?
So I think Hench is going to, I'm trying to do process of elimination. I think Hench is going to make it to the final. Now I'm kind of torn. I think they came really hard at Butter Honey Pig Bread today. I was surprised. I thought, the other ones, everyone was like very respectful and saying, it's almost perfect except for this. But they came hard at Butter Honey Pig Bread. And Roger did a phenomenal job of, coming back at that. So it wouldn't shock me if that one is gone tomorrow. But then on the other hand, 2 votes for Johnny Appleseed. I think Dev is really passionate about this book and obviously loves it, as do I. But I don't think she's actually defending it all that well. I think she's showing how much she loves it. But I think to really get into the nitty gritty about why it's so important and so great, I think she's kind of saying the same things over and over again and maybe not getting to the heart of it. Then again, I felt the same way last year about Dio and Son of a Trickster. I thought she kind of held back and didn't really play her cards early. And I thought that wasn't going to serve her well. But then she made it to the end and she came out really strong at the end with Son of a Trickster and really shocked me. And I wish she brought that at the beginning, but it obviously worked for her. She got to the end, but to the last show. So yeah, I feel like it's following that pattern. I really want to see her come out really strong tomorrow with some compelling new things to say about Johnny Appleseed. But my gut is saying it's gonna go.
All right, Rebecca, you have 30 seconds, and then we're going to say goodbye to all of our watchers.
Yeah, I would just say I agree with Larissa's point and others as well. I think it's going to be, because again, they got 2 votes today, so I think it'll be Johnny Appleseed that goes. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We were a little bit about 10 minutes over, but that's okay because you can never have too much fun having fun talking about books. Anyway, today we are sad to see The Midnight Bargain by C.L. Polk be voted or eliminated from the competition. We didn't necessarily talk about that today, but I am heartbroken because that was the book I was going to choose to champion, but it's there are 3 other great books that we have to look forward to tomorrow. So we hope you join us again tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern right here on YouTube. And don't forget, we're going to have Ali Hassan with us on Thursday for our little get